Welcome to the Have Courage, Get Out of Your Own Way and Unleash the Potential of the Inner You Summit. Today, I'm really grateful to welcome Joe Nunziata onto the show. So Joe is a best-selling author, spiritual business and leadership coach, professional speaker, and he's been spreading his message around the world since 1992. So hello there, Joe. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gary. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. So as we get going today, would you mind just giving our viewers just a little bit of a lowdown as to your sort of key focus areas of work, and then we'll get going with the conversation.
Yeah, so I work basically with energy, but I have, as we talked about earlier, I have a corporate background. So I really do work with clearing negative energy out of the chakra system and teaching people how to actually do the process for themselves, because you want to empower people to do it themselves. So that's kind of how I learned it after a lot of struggle growing up, losing my dad when I was 12, went through 2 bankruptcies by 30. So a lot of problems and issues, and was looking for some help, started with some therapy and then got into spiritual and energy work. But I had the business background first. So I first started just doing it for myself and then started helping other people, and then wrote a book, as you know, called Spiritual Selling. And I teach people how to use these principles in business, because energy, we like to compartmentalize life, but energy does not work like that. It's all one thing. So if your energy is good in work, it's going to be good at home. It's going to be good, with your kids and so forth. So that's kind of an overview. And I try to, and I'm able to show people how to integrate, regular sales and marketing principles, but using the energy, which is critically important.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I'm immediately feeling this. So often, as you say, we can't compartmentalize, leaving ourselves at home to go into work at 9 a.m. on a Monday.
Right, of course.
So what I'm sensing here is that this is really a full life solution you're offering to some extent.
Well, it's really about, I look at it as a way of living and being. And that's one of the things I think that we have to understand doing work like this. It's not about saying, hey, I went to an event or I read a book and I learned a technique and I'm using the technique, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the real win, so to speak, is really becoming different and living at a higher energy and being a different person. So it's not just about, yeah, I did this, I got motivated. It's kind of like, here we are, new year, and people are going on diets and everything else. It's about saying, I want to become different, not just do something different.
You really kindly shared your your origin story as you introduced yourself, Joe. As you grew up, as you had those bankruptcies and other sort of life, let's say, challenges, was this energy aspect sort of within your peripheral vision at that time? Was it really something that you found at a later date in your life?
Oh, no, not at all. I was a bull in a china shop. I was just going forward, but I was always interested in personal development. So after high school, I didn't go to college. I went right to work and started to work, and I wanted to be successful. So I read a lot of books about being successful, which led me into some psychology, because it was about psychology too. But I had no awareness other than, point me in a direction and go work really hard and pedal to the metal, and that's how you become successful. I did that, and I ended up going bankrupt twice. So I said, okay, something's wrong with this picture. I'm doing all this work. I'm working a lot of hours. I'm reading books. I'm setting goals. I'm doing all the stuff, as we say, but something was missing. And that's kind of what led me into this. So I was already probably, even though I was doing a lot of personal development work, I was in my 20s, my late 20s, when I started to really, early 30s, when I started to really get into this kind of metaphysical work.
Okay, interesting. Just out of interest, I was going to ask you to describe what courage means to you today. What would your sort of in the moment response to that question be, Joe? Just out of interest, what does it mean to you to be courageous today?
To be courageous to me is to live in your truth. And I think people don't. And I think what they do is they do what they think they're supposed to do, or they say what they think they're supposed to say. And I think in order to be courageous, you have to be truthful and say, this is how I feel. This is what I want to do. This is who I am. And to me, that is true courage, is to be able to do that, because I think most people are living lives that they don't want to live, or living in an illusion, or living the way they think they're supposed to. So to me, it's really about living in your real truth, good, bad, and ugly of it, in order to really move yourself forward.
No, thank you so much for sharing. This, I'm grateful you're joining me today, because this is very much me stepping into that moment of truth myself. Doing an online summit with someone like yourself, Joe, is
no accident.
This is in my zone. So if we look at the energy source, is there something for you in the work you do between this? We talk a lot about intrinsic sort of motivation and extrinsic motivation. How does sort of energy play into those sort of different states? You know, do you see it very much being an inside out approach to life we should be striving for? Is there something else going on there with energy?
Well, I think we all begin, most people, I'm not, I would say everybody, but the majority of people in the physical third dimensional world, we really begin with the external. I think we grow up thinking I'm supposed to have this car or have this job or have this, make money, or, you know, we kind of start that way. Many people never leave that space. They stay there their whole lives, which is, you know, it is what it is. The higher level, you know, working at a higher level or a spiritual level or an energy level, whatever you want to call it, that's really an internal process where you're doing something because there's a feeling within you that this is what I'm here to do. This is what I'm here to share. But most importantly, this is how I am here to serve. Mm-hmm. So you're here to serve. I'm here to serve. We all have certain gifts that we have. I'm not a good artist. I can't draw something, but you know, I can do things that the artist can't do. And I remember years ago, you know, I was living in New York. Now I'm in California, but we had a guy come and doing all kinds of work in our house. And I remember, you know, I was like, I was not a handy person. I was one of those guys, I can't do anything. So I would watch and like watch this guy in awe. I'd be like, oh my God, like, how do you, like 2 seconds, he would fix something that I said, I couldn't even comprehend what you just did. And it was, you know, I was looking at it and he said to me, well, you know, Joe, I can't write a book. So it was kind of like, it was like, okay, that's your gift. And you did it so easily. Something that I said, wow, I can't do that. And he looked at me and said, I could never do what you do. So I think we all have to look at ourselves and say, no one does everything great, right? We're all who we are. But the idea is to say, this is my wheelhouse. I need to own that and say, I'm great here. Not egoically, but knowing this is what I'm here to share. And that's where we want to go.
That's lovely. You mentioned just now actually around this sort of being in service of other people. And I have to say that's something only in the last 9 months I personally have started to really understand, because I've been stuck exactly as you described in that nice car, nice house, nice life. And then suddenly you hit the age of 42 and go, there's got to be more to life than this. And that's what it took me last year to hit that. And I don't call it a crisis, Joe. It's really an awakening is what I call it. And I'm just really interested, you know, what do you think stops people stepping into, you know, maybe that version of themselves that they desire, or trying to do something different, but they just keep holding themselves back? What's going on for them there, do you think, in terms of energy?
Well, you know, I always think there are seekers and non-seekers. So, you know, and again, it's not good or bad. It's just, we all have karma. We all have energy. We all have lives that we came to have. Certain people are not here to do that. They didn't come in this lifetime to enlighten themselves and become evolved or whatever we want to call it. And there's no judgment. And it's not saying they're good or bad. That's just what they came to do. Some people came here to just have a good time and, you know, do whatever they're doing and having this emotional human experience. And other people came to become aware and become enlightened and live a different life. So there is no good, bad, right, wrong. And everybody's different ages. I mean, some people I meet are, you know, old, they're 70 years old, and they'll come to an event and say, oh, I just started to look to get aware of this. Other people, you know, I meet kids I go into a school and I'm teaching meditation to kids who are 14 years old. So that doesn't mean that all those kids will take that path. So I think everybody's going to get their moment when they're ready to get it. And I think that's one of the important things for us to understand. Everybody's different and we're all going to evolve in a different way. But I don't think there's any right or wrong or good or bad. Certain people are not going to, and that's okay. So we have to just be okay with everything. See, that's one of the very powerful principles of doing the work is there's no judgment. There's no good, bad. There's no right, wrong. There's not, I'm better than you. I'm higher vibration. You're lower vibration. I use those terminologies just to explain what's going on, but not to say, well, I'm in a high vibration. You're in a low vibration and I'm better and you're worse. I'm just different. This was my lifetime that I came to do. Somebody else didn't. That's great. They're going to live their best life in that version. So that's important as we go forward to say, hey, this is my thing and I want to share it. And if you want to do that, that's great.
Oh, it's lovely. If we could touch on a little bit on, I'd quite like to talk about the corporate approach that you have, because I think a lot of people that are going to be watching you and I now are going to be people maybe that are in corporate lives. Maybe they strive to set up on their own, or maybe they just want to have that conversation with their line manager to maybe craft a new role or ask for a promotion. They just can't quite do it. You know, is there any advice you may have for people just around, is there a best time, for example, to step into that vulnerability or to be more courageous? Or how do people become more aware of their energy states? Is there some tips or tricks you may have to help people step into that?
The key to all energy work is emotion. So you have to know how you feel. So everything is about feeling and emotion. So most people, because especially men, are blocked because we grew up that, especially generations like ours, like we were more, don't be like that, or you're supposed to be tough or whatever it is. So the idea is to say, how do I feel? And again, I'm back to being honest. Why am I in this job? Why am I here? How did I get here? I talk to people all the time. They're 40, they're 50. They're like, hey, they're 55, they're 60. They're saying, I've been in this job. I don't even know what happened. I'm here all these years. I just kind of landed here, started making more money, got a house, had kids, paid bills, and now I'm like, what the hell? So I think, there's no right. It's just about, it's like saying, well, am I happy with where I am? And it doesn't mean you're unhappy, but to say, okay, what do I want to do? And again, maybe you're realizing that you're in the wrong career for yourself at this time, because that's not where you're being of service. That's not where you feel like that's where you're supposed to be. So I don't think there's any right or wrong, but it really is about being honest with how you feel. Now, you may say, people come to me and say, well, I can't quit my job. So I say, I never use that word, because you can't quit your job. You're choosing not to quit your job. Let's frame the words. So you may say, I want to do something different, but I need an income and I have a family. That's fine. So you're choosing to stay at work and start working on something else. So everything is choice, and you make the choice. So you have to understand, there's no such thing as I can't do X or Y. It's about I'm choosing to do X or Y. So if you're choosing to say, I hate my job, I'm staying here because I have to pay my bills, that is your choice. If you're choosing to say, hey, I want to do something different, but I realize that for now I want to keep this job because it's going to help me bridge it across, that's fine. So the key is being honest and then being connected to how you feel, and then you can start moving forward.
That's really, really powerful messaging, actually, for me. Is there something here, I feel this myself, but is there something here around presence? There's almost something about, you talk about service, Joe, it's almost serving yourself as well. How do you serve yourself to be able to take some of these decisions to some extent?
Well, you're always serving yourself. So let's be clear. I think when people want to say, this whole martyring act, I'm not a believer. I'm not here. Whatever I do for myself, because that's what I want to do. Doesn't mean I'm not serving. See, when people want to say, I'm doing this, but I'm sacrificing, that's not what we're here to do. I'm here to share, serve, and prosper. I'm not here to share, serve, and be a martyr and feel put upon and drain my energy out. So the idea of service is I'm here to share and expand and enlighten and prosper. That's what we're all here to do. So this idea that I'm here to do this and I'm sacrificing myself and I'm doing this because I want to help everybody else. Yeah, that's true. But the bottom line is you do everything for yourself. And anybody who tells you otherwise is lying. And I'm telling you right now, Gary, I've had people tell me, oh no, I do all this. I said, absolutely not. Either you want to be a victim and you want to complain, or you realize I'm doing it for myself and I am helping people and I am also energizing myself.
That's really, really powerful, actually. That's really powerful, because I think I certainly myself was stuck in a victim mindset 18 months ago.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
And I think that was an awful lot to do with not believing I had the choices. But I think listening to you speak now, and I've understood this the last few months, it was I didn't want to take accountability for what those choices may result in.
Right.
Yeah,
and again, you don't know when you're changing. You're going into the unknown, which nobody likes. So it's like, hey, I want to make a career change at 40 or 50 or whatever. Like, I've been doing this for 20 years or whatever. Now all of a sudden I want to do something else. It's scary because it's like, I don't know anything. I mean, even when I started doing this, I was in my early 30s and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know. There was no internet. None of this existed. I was just I was going to the library and trying to figure things out. And, I didn't know what I was doing. So there's a lot of fear involved. So what I say to people is don't resist that you have fear, because you're going to have it. So the one thing with emotional work is I accept every feeling. It doesn't mean I'm going to have it forever, but the minute I resist the feeling, I can't go forward. So I had a lot of fear, and uncertainty. And I had to accept that that was part of what I had at that time. Everybody who does something new will have that feeling. So just say, okay, I have it. It's fine. I'm just going to keep moving forward and I'll deal with it as I go. But if you don't have fear and uncertainty, you're not alive.
So how did you manage to deal with that yourself in terms of, setting up, for example, you mentioned you went bankrupt a couple of times, you restarted again, you're where you are today. What was it about you or your energy that enabled you to keep coming back or to deal with those fears or those challenges?
I have this conversation with many people, other people and, people who have been teachers of mine. And, it's just kind of certain people just have that intestinal fortitude. And for whatever reason, they just have to keep going forward and we'll just keep doing it. Now, other people don't. Other people get a job in the government and they stay there and that's what they do. So, the people who have this internal feeling, because it's a feeling that I always had of doing something. I didn't know what it was earlier. I thought it was being, it was funny. I laugh now because I grew up in New York and Trump, of course, is from New York. And growing up in New York, we all knew him from years. I mean, before he was anywhere in the country, we always knew about him because he was like a New York celebrity. So everybody knew him in the New York market. And, that was like the goal for everybody. I want to be like Trump and I want to have buildings with my name on it. And that was kind of what, now seeing him as president, it's almost like this is like an episode of The Simpsons. It's like comical. But, I think that's kind of the shift and the evolution of, I started out saying, oh, that's what I want to do. And then realized as I evolved, oh, that's really not what I want to do. But it's following that internal feeling. It's like this person who's an actor or a person who is an inventor or an entrepreneur, or even if they fail and they fail and they fail and they just, people say like, why do you keep doing that? It's just like, I can't stop. It's what I'm driven to do. So even me, I worked in between doing this work and I've had jobs in between. I've done all these different things. I always did the work on some level. And it was almost like no matter what, I knew that it was important for me to keep doing something and putting the work out there and then let it just evolve as it is going to.
Wonderful. Are you able to share any example stories of maybe where some people were at in their thinking before maybe going on some of the work with you, Joe, and some of the results following, maybe working with you coaching wise or going on one of your programs or reading one of your books? Have you seen any sort of transformations or aha moments in some of the people you've worked with over the years?
Obviously, I get a lot of emails and stuff from the books and people I never met and who were on a call or on an interview like this. And, I'll get emails or they'll go on my YouTube channel and they'll send me a little message and so forth. But the people I work with, that's when I get to really kind of see it. And, it was a while back when it was quite a number of years ago, a woman came to me. It was funny. She saw one of the people I was coaching speak, because I was training this person. And then she said, where did you learn to do that? Well, do that at the end and close and blah, blah, blah. She said, I'm working with this guy. And then she called me. So she was a woman, and it was a long time ago in the financial industry, which mostly it's men, especially in New York, Wall Street, all that. And she said, I'm really nervous about, speaking to people and getting in front of people and doing these presentations. And she had this energy and she wanted me to teach her the techniques. So I said, well, I'll teach you that. But I said, let's get into where does this fear come from? Where does this feeling of, that you can't do it? Where does this really come from? And it came from energy she was holding with her mother. So I showed her how to clear that energy out and years. But she has been on MSNBC. She's a regular. She writes articles for the Wall Street Journal. She's spoken in all these events. She's spoken at some of my events. I've gone to actually speak at some of her events. So here's this person who, when I met her, was afraid to talk to one person, and now has become this like financial. She's got a nonprofit organization. Just an amazing story. But it's funny when I go back to her, and I laugh now. When I met her, now she has kids and the whole thing. I said, when I met you 20 years ago, do you remember when you told me I'm afraid to talk to someone? And now I'm watching you on TV. So these are the kind of things that you can see people evolve into if they're ready to step forward.
It's absolutely wonderful. Can we touch a little bit on your spiritual selling work? Because I think that's really interesting. And again, I think we're going to have a good mix of people watching and I talk now. I think there's a lot of work around the law of attraction. And I think, I think The Secret quite brought this to life as well in the documentary. How does that show up? What's sort of been some of the benefits of you working in that area, Joe, today around showing people how to sort of work around spiritual selling?
Well, so, I was in sales at a very young age. So I went through the corporate trading, in New York. So it was very hardcore. You go out there, you knock them out and you get those deals and you sign those contracts. And I did really well. I started out because I was always a good student and I applied what I learned. So I went out there, was doing really well. But then after a while, a couple of things happened that kind of bothered me. Like the company didn't take care of a client that I told them, I promised them something and they said, don't worry, we'll take care of it. They didn't make good or whatever happened. And things started to bother me. And I noticed that a lot of other people didn't care. They said, I don't care. As long as I get my commission, I don't really care. So I said, well, why is this bothering me? Everybody else doesn't seem to care. But that's because I was different. So as I started learning these principles, I said, well, these are universal principles, why they should work everywhere. And I started to overlay the energy work into sales. And I started to understand that the people who were doing well, they had different energy than the people who struggled. So the first thing was the people who did well, it was funny, they expected to do well. Where the people who struggled were always saying, oh, I hope this works out, or they were complaining, or they were saying things didn't work out. So there was a different vibe of the people who did well. And then the other people at the highest level were really there, again, in service. They would say, how am I helping this person? How is what I'm doing helping this person? So it's understanding that, how do you feel when you are selling your product or service? That is going to be the key to your success. And one of the things that's really interesting about energy, and when I'm working with salespeople, it kind of blows them away. And I say, your energy got to the appointment before you did, based on how you feel. So if you feel nervous, or if you feel unworthy, or if you feel this is not right, or whatever it is that you're feeling, or if you feel great, or if you feel like this is going to be a great presentation, whatever it is that you feel already got there to your client or prospect before you did. And it helps people frame their feelings. How do I really feel about this? Am I confident? Do I like this? Is this something I want to be doing? Understanding how you feel and then sending that energy out is a very important part of how successful you will be in anything, but especially sales, because in sales, we have to go out there and say, what is my intention? Critically important. What is my expectation? And how do I create a situation where everybody benefits? Those are the feelings that we want. Now, a lot of corporations, I will tell you, because I still do a lot of training in that area, do not do that. People say, oh, now 2019, that book came out in 2007. So back then, forget it. I was in New York doing those presentations in 2007 to rooms full of New York business people. They thought I was crazy, and teaching a meditation and meditate before you go to an appointment. But it's something that we still have a long way to go, because we still have a lot of companies that are bottom line dollar driven. And it's like, hey, go out there, make the sale. They don't care what happens. They don't care about collateral damage. They don't care about what happens. So we are still in the middle of a big shift that is really just starting, as far as I'm concerned, in the business world, where more companies are becoming more conscious, but we still have a long way to go.
It's really interesting, that word conscious. This is something I've become very mindful of the last 6 months, is around the 3 principles. So mind, consciousness, and thought. And I think my level of consciousness has raised massively in the last 6 months. And I think to me, again, come back to the point, Joe, around presence, and I think particularly from a sales point of view, or even just relationship point of view, how do people allow themselves or give themselves permission to stop, to allow themselves to access more innate resourcefulness? Is that something that you come across in your work as well? Around the importance.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially coming from New York in a sales background, we were always 100 miles an hour. There was no taking a step back. There was just like, keep going. You push. So for me, growing up like that, I lost my dad when I was young, felt a lot of pressure. I was the oldest and a boy and so forth. So this idea of nothingness, stopping, don't do anything, just let it be for a while and let things kind of roll out in front of you, I will tell you, created many sleepless nights for me, because I just wasn't that kind. It wasn't my thing. My thing was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it happen. My thing was not, I'm going to sit here and nothing seems to be really working. So just don't do anything right now. It takes work to get to that point. And what it really is, Gary, is the feeling of trust. So do I trust that the universe is going, if I see that I'm pushing and things aren't working and I need to step back and maybe money's not coming in or things aren't working or whatever the case, do I trust that the universe will support me and bring me to where I have to be? So this is a very big thing for us. I think for all of us as humans is to say that, because if we grew up in an environment where we did not trust our parents, which many of us didn't based on how we grew up, then you go out into the world and you say, well, I could only depend on myself. And if I don't do it, it's not happening. So the idea is to say, do I trust that the universe will bring me what I need when I need it? And it doesn't mean I'm not working. People, I think this is an important thing. And I think a lot of people who saw The Secret, it kind of took them in a bad direction because they think, oh, I'm just going to sit around and not do anything. And all of a sudden I'm going to get checks coming into my mailbox. That's not what it really is about. What it's really about is saying, I understand that all action is not good. There's good action and there's bad action and there's inaction. Some inaction is better than action that you're taking to go from frying pan into the fire. So the idea is to say when to act, when not to act, what work to put in, what work not to put in. See, so it's kind of learning that balance of saying, yeah, I'm attracting, but sometimes things just aren't happening, or maybe it's not, I'm out of alignment a little bit. I need to take a step back. But the key thing for that area is going to be the trust factor. Do you trust that the universe is going to bring you the right information, the right person, the right opportunity when is important, when you are ready to receive it?
So if we've got anybody listening to you speak now, they may be saying, okay, I do get it, but how will I know when it's the right time to receive it? How would you sort of deal with that challenge from anyone that may be asking that question right now?
Well, there is no right time to receive it. Think about it as alignment. Okay, so energy, so let's say you have this desire and your energy is here, and this is where you want to go. So you're not vibrating at the energy that is going to take you to that place. Now, and many times the universe will say, well, you're not ready for this yet. You need to learn a few more things. So you need to get a couple of lessons before you get here. So this is, again, back to the saying, okay, I have this desire. I'm going to keep moving in that direction. I don't have to say it has to be by, February 5th. It's just saying, just keep moving in that direction, or take a break when you have to, stop when you have to. And it's learning. So that's the kind of ebb and flow. I think we're very linear in our thought process. It's like we go to school, first grade, second grade, third grade. You go through this. So everything's like, go to work and you get this job and you get this job. Everything is linear, and the universe is not linear. But we as humans became that way because that's how we grew up. So the idea is to say, I need to let all that go and realize that I want to get out of the matrix, so to speak. We're all everybody in third dimension is in the matrix. I want to get out of the matrix and be in a different energy and realize that I can go from one dramatic, in one day, I could be in a whole dramatically different place. And that can happen. But according to how we learned it, that's not the way it works. So again, it's letting go. It's almost like realizing that everything I learned was wrong. I think that's what happened when I got into it. It was almost like, oh my God, virtually everything I learned was wrong. And I had to revamp myself and re-educate myself and understand everything from a different perspective.
It's really interesting. On that note, are you involved, or is it something, have you ever been involved in the sort of education system or helping young people understand this stuff at an earlier age, Joe? Is that something that you've been involved with?
Yeah, I've gone into a lot of schools. Sometimes people will see me speak and say, hey, would you come into my school? And I did a great program in New York with young kids from terrible backgrounds. They all came from broken families or drug addicts and everything else. These were the most amazing kids. They were ages from about 11, 12 years old up to about 17, 18. And we had about 40 kids. My wife and I went. We spent the whole day with them and we talked to them. So yeah, I mean, this is something. I wish I would have learned this when I didn't come out of that environment. My son now, who's 25, learned this when he was a kid. So his whole perspective on the world is completely different. I mean, he learned all these things. I mean, there was some resistance too, but he learned a different way to think, a different way to operate, a different way to understand the world. So yes, I think ultimately we want to bring this to the children at a youngest possible age to give them a different way of seeing the world and then operating completely differently than we did. And I think you are seeing it to a degree with the millennials who have more of a, I want to enjoy myself mindset, and they don't want to be like, we grew up, it was kind of like, get married, get a good job, get a house, have a kid, they're not like that. They're very different. Now they have other issues, they have different issues that come with that too. So, but I think we're evolving. It's just going to take time to get to more of a balance. I think the millennials are a little too far to one side. We were a little too far to the other. Somewhere in the middle is probably right.
That's wonderful. And I really appreciate you sharing that example, because I think for anyone that's watching us now is that, yeah, we're trying to help adults. Well, I've been thinking we're trying to help adults, but there's really, as you say, it's the full chain.
Oh,
We can help young people as well. Fantastic.
anybody. Yeah, I mean, I get people at events from 20s up to 70. I mean, I get them across the board. So could be anybody.
That's amazing. So how many live events do you do? Live events, or is it sort of just for?
Yeah, I do a lot. I speak at other people's events a lot, and then I've done a lot of that over the years. The last year or so, I've kind of cut back a little, and now with the technology available, we can obviously do things like this, and you and I can talk from London, and be in California, and we can do all these great things. So I still love the live events because there's nothing like the feeling of being live. But I can reach a lot more people this way. So I've tended to do more of this, but I still do a lot of, I still go out and speak and do all that as well.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much for your time. I think it needs to be start to wrap up your time now. For anyone that's watching us now, you very kindly have offered a free gift around the free life school. Would you mind just explaining a little bit about what's on offer there from you? Very kindly, Joe.
So I have a free webinar you can go download right away, and it's called How to Change Your Life in 11 Minutes a Day. So I want to be clear. It's not saying that in 11 minutes your whole life will change, but it's understanding that the key to success for anybody is consistency. And what people tend to do is, go to a class, read a book, whatever, do it for a couple of weeks, and then put it aside. So the idea is to say, I don't have to spend 10 hours a day, but as long as I'm consistent in my practice of being aware, being focused, and doing things that are going to help your life move forward, I go through 7 keys, 7 things you can do right away to begin to make that transformation, and it will only take you 11 minutes a day. So if they go to freelifeschool.com, they can get that right away. Just put your information, you'll get an instant download, and you'll be able to watch it, the webinar.
Wonderful. And just as we really, how can people reach out to you if they want to follow up this conversation with you directly, Joe? Are they the best mediums to contact?
Yeah, they go to my main website is Joe Nunz, so it's JoeNunz.com. So it's shortened version of my name, but it's JoeNunz.com, and I have a bunch of information on there and contact information as well if somebody was interested in coaching or other programs. I also have my products and events, and everything is there.
Wonderful. Look, thank you so much for sparing your time today. It's been an absolute joy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good luck, Dario.
Take care.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.